We have an absolutely massive update on the future of the New York Islanders as Lou Lamoriello has finally revealed his master plan to fix this franchise. On this episode of Islanders Digest, we're really going to be breaking down what the Islanders offseason and this master plan can look like. And one thing I will make really clear is there are definitely going to be changes. At least if we are to believe what Lou Lamoriello said in his most recent press conferences, the Islanders will finally be making change. But before we get to that, be sure to subscribe to the channel. If you're not already, be one of our first 100 subscribers. If you're an Islander fan and you want more Islanders content, this is the channel for you. Now, I am just so excited to hear, after years and years of Lou Lamoriello running back the same team over and over again, telling us in every single press conference how much he believed in this group, it finally seems like Lou Lamoriello is ready to make change for the Islanders after his most recent press conference. And I'm going to really start by getting into his quotes and then really talk about what I think these moves can look like. And I am very excited for this offseason. I definitely think this is going to be the most exciting offseason the Islanders have had in a long time. Lou Lamoriello said after the trade deadline, we felt that where a few of our players are, when I say a few, several of our players we could have made moves with, they would be better done at a different time. And in addition, Lou Lamoriello also said there will be change this summer. Until there's change, you can't say how much, but I can assure you there will be change. Now, I really like this first quote because it shows you that Lou Lamoriello was looking at making more moves than just Brock Nelson. He just felt like there was a better time to make those moves. And one thing Lou Lamoriello does do well is he does not rush moves. And that second video also really ensures that Lou Lamoriello is not just going to be making moves for the sake of making change, but he really does have an idea of how to change his team. And in some of the other quotes, he really kind of talks about making this team younger. And that is definitely something the Islanders are going to have to do to make younger. But first, really to make the team younger, you're really going to have to find some roster spots on the team to move older players. And I definitely think that's where this first part comes in, where Lou Lamoriello is talking about how this was not the time to make change. Now, this is the first time in a long time that Lou Lamoriello has actually had a lot of cap space for the New York Islanders. As we look right here, the New York Islanders will have a little under $29 million to make moves next season. Now, that is a ton of money, and that is really exciting for a hockey fan. But keep in mind, the Islanders do also have a couple RFAs that they definitely do need to bring back. Siplikov and Holmstrom are definitely in need of a new deal. Gatcomb has also been pretty good this season. He's only 25 years old. I think he's also going to get a new deal. Those three players combined are probably going to make around $8 million. So right there, you're already down to around $21 million. If you look onto the defensemen, you also have to bring back Alexander Romanov and Noah Dobson. If the Islanders are trying to get younger, and we'll break this down a little more, I do think they also bring back Adam Boqvist and Scott Perunovich. That's going to look pretty interesting. I think the Islanders do move a defenseman to kind of make room for them. I don't think it's going to be Noah Dobson. I definitely think while the Islanders were trying to keep Brock Nelson, I definitely think there was a chance that Lou Lamoriello would trade Noah Dobson. Now that Brock Nelson is no longer on the Islanders and they no longer have to extend him because he's on the Avalanche, it no longer makes sense to move Dobson because the Islanders now can afford to give Dobson a $7.5, maybe $8 million contract without risk of losing anyone. So I think that definitely changes that part of the plan. But I really want to go back to this list of forwards and talk about some players who can be moved for potential younger options. Now, I don't think Lou Lamoriello is going to just be shipping off players for draft picks. That's definitely something that he kind of did not want to do on the deadline. He talks about how if there was a deal where he could have gotten a top prospect for Palmieri, he probably would have pulled the trigger. Again, I don't think Lou Lamoriello really values first-round picks that much, especially when you're trading them from playoff teams that are not going to be too high. That being said, really looking at this roster, I could definitely see the Islanders moving a Jean-Gabriel Pageau, maybe even for a draft pick once the season ends and we're really in that draft period, pre-free agent period. As we're going to go on a little later in this video, there really aren't that many talented centers in this year's free agent class, and as a result, I definitely think some teams will be willing to pay for Pageau, at least a premium. And I think the big reason I think why he is one of the most ideal players to move out is Pageau is not a second-line center. Currently, for the rest of the season, he is going to be playing second-line center. It's one of the main reasons why, while the Islanders are still alive, it is not looking so good for them to make a playoff push. That being said, he really does not fit as a second-line center. He's a good third line center, but with Caleb Ritchie coming up next season, I really believe that the Islanders want to at least give him the best possible chance at playing that third line center role. I don't think they want to play him as a fourth line center. I definitely think they want to play him as a center because that is the plan long term. Lou Lamoriello really raised in his press conference about how good of a center he is, so I don't see them moving him to wing. As a result, I think Pajot is the center they move out. In addition, I do think the Islanders do acquire a center. Lou Lamoriello was really clear about talking about how he wants the team to remain competitive during this whole process. And as we look here in the center market, there really are not that many options. John Tavares, of course, has links to the Islanders after leaving a couple of years ago. I don't think that will even possibly happen. Don't even think it's worth talking about unless we hear some rumors that something's going wrong in Toronto. That's really kind of a fantasy and honestly would not be the best fit for the Islanders at this point. I do, however, think that it is a good possibility that Brock Nelson does come back. Colorado has basically no cap space next season. Even with the cap going up, they are still very tight against the cap. And he loved being with the Islanders. He came really close to re-signing a contract. Some people were upset that Lou Lamoriello tried to bring Brock Nelson back this season without trading him. He offered him a 3-year contract, rumored to be around $7.5 million. The issue there was Brock Nelson wanted a little more term. I can see Brock Nelson coming back to the Islanders after the whole playoff run, after the season's over, and maybe getting an extra year from them, maybe like 4 years, $7.5 million, especially after he tested free agency. I think part of the philosophy here, too, for the Islanders was when it came to dealing with Brock Nelson and Kyle Palmieri, they were going to try to see if they can get them on a team-friendly deal, and in that case, they wouldn't trade them. They definitely think that it was more encouraging for Kyle Palmieri to potentially sign a team-friendly deal, or at least they didn't think that Kyle Palmieri would hurt them as much if he left, and that definitely is the case. So I definitely think the Islanders can be bringing back Brock Nelson and really offer them a center to kind of have as their second-line center until Ritchie is ready to be the second-line center, because having your top prospect come right up and be your second-line center the first season, I know some fans want to see that because that is his potential. His potential is a top 6 center. That would be absolutely insane. That would be terrible roster management, and it really would not be good for the player or the team. Now, when it comes to Kyle Palmieri, because a lot of people are being really critical of Lou for retaining this player, I do think the Islanders sign him if he kind of agrees to like a $4 million 2-year contract, that type of thing. And as we're going to get into the free agents, I definitely think that would be a bargain. This is really not a great group of free agents. I can definitely see that happening. And then when it comes to the defensemen, I think in addition, there are other players the Islanders are going to move. Really quickly before we get to defense, because I forgot, Anders Lee is a player who is on the last year of his contract. There were some rumors that the Islanders might move him. I really don't think the Islanders will move him unless they can get a higher quality free agent on the market. And if that's not the case, I think they stick with Lee, but they do end up trading Pajot for maybe a pick or a prospect, or maybe even they trade for a pick and then use that pick to acquire a younger player. So I do think that's going to be one of their main concerns, acquiring younger players. Now, we look here on the defense. One player I definitely am noticing is Pelech's no trade clause becomes a 16-team no-move clause in the offseason. I really wonder if Adam Pelech is a defenseman the Islanders move. They're not going to move a player like Alexander Romanov. He's been one of their best defensemen, and he is going to probably command a major raise, could potentially be making almost $6 million next season, and I think that would be well worth it. He's been one of their best defensemen. I love the physicality he brings to the game. Ryan Pulock has a no-movement clause, the same as Scott Mayfield. And to be honest, I don't really think it would make as much sense to move Ryan Pulock. He has been more reliable between him and Pelech, and I can definitely see another team taking on Pelech. He is a really strong defenseman when he is healthy, and in free agency, there really are not that many of those players available, so maybe the Islanders could get a good return for Pelech and really try to make this defense younger. I really think they're going to be trying to get more time for Boquist and Perunovic, especially as they kind of fall out of the playoffs this season. Assuming they do fall off, they can kind of come back together and really pull together, but at this point, it's really not looking likely, and I think those are players that they will definitely bring back next season. Again, there were a lot of rumors for Noah Dobson. I don't see them moving Noah Dobson, at least not anymore, especially based on what the season is. Now, if the Islanders aren't able to acquire a center, I can definitely see them maybe shifting and looking for a winger. But again, free agency is not looking so good. These are the top few, all positions, centers, wingers, no defensemen are on this list. And it is based on how much money they made last season, so some of them are not the best options. Like Nicholas Backstrom is no longer even playing, but it gives you kind of an idea of the players available. And this is one of the main reasons why I think the Islanders are trying to bring back Palmieri. If you can sign him for a deal, he's going to be a lot cheaper than some of these other players. The Islanders are trying to keep their roster competitive, really have, when they get young players on this roster, have older players like Palmieri to really tutor them and also keep the team competitive, because you don't want to have a player coming into a terrible team, such as the situations like the Buffalo Sabres, where the team really struggles and it's just not good for the player's development. And I think if Kyle Palmieri signs a 2-year, $4 million contract, it would be a huge discount over some of these guys on this list. Also, I think the only situation where the Islanders really end up trading Lee, unless there's an absolutely massive offer, is if maybe they're trying to clear cap if they can land a guy such as Nikolai Ehlers. I think that's a guy, while he is 28, he's young enough where he can still provide value to the team, while also it's a team where it could fit for the Islanders because Ehlers is kind of looking to be a first-line winger rather than a support guy, and the Islanders can definitely offer him that. Now, that being said, out of the other centers, because I really talked about how I think the Islanders would like to bring Brock Nelson back, the other center I think they could get some interest for is Granlund. Other than that, I really don't see that many centers worth even bringing back, so it's definitely going to be interesting to see, because I think the Islanders really do want to bring in a new second-line center. We'll see what happens there. And finally, I do want to talk about prospects, because Islanders are definitely going to try to be bringing prospects in next season. Richie is definitely the most NHL-ready prospect. You also want Quinn Finley, also has a chance to be a fourth-liner next season for the Islanders. He really has stepped up in college. I definitely think that is a possibility. Danny Nelson is also a player who could be competing with Quinn Finley for a roster spot. Other than that, Cole Eiserman is a really incredible prospect. That being said, I think he needs another year. I also think Isaiah George does play another season in the AHL. Lou Lamoriello is not going to be rushing these guys to play in the NHL, and he's going to try to keep this team competitive. He's not going to just try to drop all the players to kind of play all the prospects. One more thing to note is the Islanders are likely going to be drafting pretty high this season. We have the 2025 NHL Draft Lottery Simulator. I don't want to get into all those scenarios or what if the Islanders win the lottery. I more want to talk about where they can be picking, assuming they don't win the lottery. Right now they're at 10, but with that Pajot as their second-line center, the offense is really struggling, and even though they had a good game against the Sharks in the Anaheim game, the power play looked absolutely abysmal. With all these things being said, I can see the Islanders maybe dropping a few spots, maybe as low. I can see them as low as 7, maybe 6. I don't see them below that. And this is definitely going to be really important for this future of the plan, because I think Lou Lamoriello really wants to get this done in the next 2 seasons. So if the Islanders really do somehow put together a playoff push, maybe this group really does gel together, and they do kind of drop back to maybe like 11 or 12 in this draft, I can really see Lou Lamoriello trading this pick in a way he did for a younger player like Romanov to really bring young talent into this roster. Because as I said, a lot of the Islanders' top prospects are still another year out, and I definitely think if the Islanders are in like the top 7 of the draft and they can get a guy who's going to be ready in the next 2 seasons, they definitely will wait, kind of bring him up with Eiserman. But if it's going to be a player that's going to be more of a project, I definitely think the Islanders rather kind of trade the pick and really get assets now. That being said, let me know what you think of this plan. Do you think this is something that Lou Lamoriello would do? And what would you like to see the Islanders do this offseason? I know the season is not over yet, but I think it is really important to talk about this, especially considering that Lou Lamoriello is finally talking about it. Let me know what you think in the comments below. If you haven't already, be sure to subscribe to the channel. And as always, let's go Islanders.